In today's GTA video, we're going to be talking about 10 sad, creepy, and disturbing deaths you might not have known about in the GTA series. So we've got a lot to talk about today, spanning from 3D era games to the HD era. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get it started. At the number 1 spot today, we've got Luis Cassidy Williams, who makes an appearance in Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. So as implied by her family name, Luis is the sister of Phil and Mary Jo Cassidy, who's the wife of Marty J. Williams, the leader of a local gang. Now, in the story of Vice City Stories, Luis is later kidnapped by Jerry Martinez. His men take her to a lobby where Victor finds her savagely beaten. Now, Luis was killed by Armando Mendez after Armando's men kidnapped her and took her to the Menendez brothers' mansion. Armando shoots her several times before she died. She tells Vic she thought that they could have had something special, in quotes. To which Vic replied, they did have something special. So it's sad because there's like a love connection here. And what makes it even worse is she dies telling Vic to make sure that Mary Jo takes care of her baby daughter. That's right, she had just had a young girl, and that's what makes it incredibly sad. So this whole story is sad because there's obviously a love connection here, but there's also a little daughter involved, which also turns out to be one of the few instances of children in the GTA series. So it's just a very, very sad situation. At the number 2 spot today, we have Billy Gray. So Billy Gray was the president of the Lost MC motorcycle group in Alderney, Liberty City. So I believe this ending is justified because at the end of the day, Billy did some terrible things to betray the motorcycle group, but it's sad because the potential was there. And what's even worse is that Billy was going to testify to the FIB against the MC to get himself out of jail. So he was going to betray them all together, which again, makes it even more sad. But the ending is really cool. Johnny and his group of MC buddies, Terry and Clay, they have to like bust into jail, and you have this big confrontation with Billy there. So it's sad due to the circumstances, not really sad due to the way Billy died, because it was definitely justified, totally deserved, and the ending was absolutely epic. The next 2 deaths we're going to talk about come in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and that is Ryder and Big Smoke. So just like Billy Gray, their deaths were ultimately sort of justified due to their betrayal to CJ and obviously the families. But it's sad because they were such likable characters, and it stinks that they turned out to be the bad guys and that they ended up selling CJ out, which is so unfortunate. Like I said, they were some of the best characters of all time. Ryder ends up dying in the final mission, Pier 69, and Big Smoke ends up dying in the mission End of the Line. So again, you've got separate different missions in which they end up dying, but it's unfortunate because they're such amazing characters and they will be remembered forever in the GTA series. Which I think is another reason why San Andreas was such a great game, is because you had these likable characters, Ryder and Big Smoke, and when they end up betraying you, that sort of makes it even worse, and it makes their deaths really sad as they were such a big part of the game and such a big part of the story. The number 5 spot today, this one might seem awfully familiar, Trevor Phillips. So Trevor, in the end of the day, is killed by Franklin after Devin Weston tells him to do that. And the sad part about Trevor's story is, even though he's a nut job, he's a psychopath, he's a murdering rampage of a person, he really does care for the people he loves. Like, for example, Patricia Madrazo. He really likes her. He obviously cares about his mom. She actually visits him if you do that extra mission at the end. And you can also really tell that he cares for Michael's kids, Tracy and, of course, Jimmy. And they really like Trevor as an uncle. They react to him in a more favorable way than Michael and Amanda does. So it is really sad to see that at the end of the game, all seems to go well. And the way he dies is brutal too. Obviously going on that big car chase that he's led on. He ends up crashing into sort of like a gasoline tanker. And then he is lit on fire, burned alive. So not only is his story sad, but the way he ends up dying too is incredibly harsh. Maybe some people say it's justified. Maybe it's not justified. Either way, I think it is still pretty intense. At the number 6 spot today, Dave Bose Oy. So we only see Dave Bose Oy once, and it is in the very first mission of Grand Theft Auto 4, The Cousins Bellics. This is the guy getting whipped by the lady inside of the ship. Nico calls for him, Dave, but he doesn't come. Now, we actually don't see his death on screen, but we actually know what happened to him. According to a Weasel News report, Bose Oy's body was later found floating in the Humboldt River, trussed up in a straitjacket and a diaper, covered in whip lashings. Now, the cause of his death is unknown, and Hassan Ramsey will send Nico an email asking if he heard about Dave's death. So I think you can kind of tell what happened here based off of that very first cutscene. Ending up in a straitjacket and a diaper. Yikes, that is a lousy way to go out. The number 7 spot today, we've got Margot. So Margot is a character in The Ballad of Gay Tony who dated Luis Lopez at some point during 2007. Now, Luis ended the relationship when he revealed that he didn't want to marry her. Afterwards, she stalked and became obsessed with him, even though her father told her that Luis was a bad influence. But her crazy mental obsession with Luis made her send constant emails, phone calls, and gifts. So Luis encounters Margot at Pier 45 holding on to a handrail, and she's ready to jump from 2 stories, claiming that Luis would save her if he loved her. Now, before jumping, Margot says that Luis's debaucherous lifestyle is the reason for her death, as she's holding a suicide note stating that he is responsible. Now, Luis pleads with her that she wouldn't kill herself for him and attempts to stop her, but she leaps out of his reach to her death. And a crowd of civilians surrounding the pier believe that Luis pushed her. However, obviously Luis escapes. But this story is so sad. It's like the crazy ex-girlfriend that can't get over the boyfriend, and she ends up killing herself because of her like crazy obsession with Luis and her inability to move on. It's like a really sad story in a DLC that's all about like flashing lights and gold buzzards and stuff like that. So that's a death you might not have known about, and it is pretty brutal. The number 8 spot today, Beverly Johnson. So Beverly Johnson never appears in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, but you might know who she is. She's the mother of Carl Johnson, the protagonist of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, her death is pretty interesting. 2 Ballas members under the orders of corrupt LSPD officers Frank Tenpenny and Eddie Pulaski attempted a drive-by shooting at Beverly's house in order to attempt to kill Sweet. However, Sweet was not in the house, and instead, Sweet and CJ's mom, Beverly, was killed instead. And the sad part about this whole thing is Sweet ran into the house to discover his mother dead, and Kendall also ran into the house but was stopped from entering by Sweet. So it's really sad. Like, the mom of CJ, Beverly Johnson, had like nothing to do with this hit, yet she was the one who ended up dying. It's so sad. Obviously, she never appears in the game. We know her place of death, and we know her date of death too, but we never get to see her in game. It's just a really, really sad story, but ultimately it kind of sparks the whole plot of GTA San Andreas. So in a way, it's sort of interesting. Number 9 spot today, Miguel from Grand Theft Auto 3. So Miguel is a very interesting character. He actually joins the Colombian cartel in Liberty City, becoming a prominent member of the gang. Now, he has some appearances in sort of the campaigns. He appears in about 7 or 8 missions. His death is something that's pretty creepy. So his death actually begins by getting tortured for information on the cartel's operations by Asuka. And then after Asuka gets the information, he actually gets impaled on a construction pole. That's right. That's how Claude finds him, impaled on a construction pole. Yikes. That's a pretty bad way to go out, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I guess that's what you get for signing up with the cartel, but it's still a pretty brutal way to go, to end up finding your body impaled on a construction pole. So that's Miguel. His death is pretty crazy nonetheless in Grand Theft Auto 3. And at the number 10 spot, a character we're all well familiar with, Brad Snyder from GTA 5. So Brad is sort of the guy who takes the fall for Michael's plea deal with the government. So he actually wasn't even supposed to die. Instead, he took a bullet for Trevor Phillips. In the prologue, Davey is actually aiming for Trevor. Brad steps in front of him and he takes the bullet. Now, Michael takes a bullet as well, but he was wearing a bulletproof vest because he obviously had a deal with Michael. And it's sad, but his death is incredibly important because it pretty much shapes the entire relationship between Michael and Trevor. Because Trevor would write emails to Brad in jail, even though that really wasn't him. He thought Michael was dead when it turns out Brad is in his grave. So it turns out Brad is like the whole reason the GTA 5 plot existed, at least in terms of when Trevor and Michael get back together. And it obviously turns into a huge discussion point as the story gets on. But he never meant to die. He just took a bullet for Trevor, and it was all Michael's fault. But anyways, that right there is 10 characters that had a brutal, crazy, or sad death in the GTA series. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Do you have any other characters that we didn't mention in this video or any other videos that I've done that you think should have made it on this list? Let me know your thoughts, opinions, and more in the comments down below. If you did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would, of course, be awesome. And also, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily GTA 5 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.